Welcome to the next video in this series. Today we're going to be naming variables, printing variables, and determining different data types of variables. So first off, we're going to be determining different ways to name variables. So there are many different ways to do this. So first we're going to learn about the camel case. And the camel case is the most common way to define variables in JavaScript. So let's do hello world. And this is called the camel case, and it's the most common in JavaScript. So the camel case basically has the first letter of the declaration as lowercase, and then the next pieces of words are going to be uppercase. So let's print this. Run hello. So it returns hello as expected. So the next way we can define a variable is using the Pascal case. So let's say world. It's called the Pascal. In the Pascal case, basically, each word in the declaration are going to be uppercase. So I'm going to print this. Hello world. First word, which is camel case, then the next word, which is Pascal case, printed. So another way to do this is we can take the snake case. We're going to just call this hello world, exclamation mark, and this is the snake case. So the snake case basically takes each word and places an underscore in between each one. So we could also do hello world, first word hi. Let's say that, and we're going to print this. So you can put an underscore. It's essentially a way to keep it more organized for some people. So we're going to take first word equals hi. Now it should print hello world below. Perfect. So these are the more common ways to define variables. Obviously, like I said, camel case is the most common, but these are still common ways to define variables. But there are two more obscure ways to define these variables. So we can do one with a $sign in front, and we can do one with an underscore in front. So these are the only two ways to declare variables with special characters rather than just normal words in front. So you can only use a $sign and underscore in the function declaration. So let's print both of these. Not function declaration, variable declaration. So we're going to print these. Run, and it should be 10 and 5. 10 and 5, so that works. So you cannot use any other special characters in a variable declaration. So only the $sign and the underscore allowed. So I'll prove that by trying with a question mark. And as you can see, it creates an error. So this is not allowed. Another way that is not allowed is having a number in front of the variable name. So this is invalid when it starts with a number, and it will also be invalid if there are other special characters within. So those are the different names to different ways to name variables. So now what we want to do is I want to show different ways to print variables. So obviously you all know, after watching my first video, how to print single variables in a console statement. But how would we print multiple variables in the same console statement? So it's actually quite simple. So I'm going to take away this, And let's say we want to produce hello world. How would we do that? So it's very simple actually. We just have to add a plus sign, and then let's actually rename this to last word plus last word. But we have an issue, right? It says hello world, but there's no space in between. So how would we put a space in between the first word and the last word? So what we'd do is we'd put a string value in between with a space, and we'd add the addition operator, and now it will return hello world. So this essentially means you're taking the first word, adding a space in between, and then adding the last word, which produces hello world. So now let's try a way that's a little bit more difficult, or a little bit more of a complex question. So I'm going to write it out, and you can pause the video and try to solve it. So we're going to say print the statement I am 3,000 miles away from New York. And what we want is 3,000 and New York to be, New York to be variable values. So pause the video and try to solve this. And now I'm going to solve this. Okay. So obviously we have to define the two variables. So let's start with the 3,000. So we're going to let distance equal 3,000. Okay, and then we're going to take New York and we're going to say let city equal New York. And New York has to be a string value, of course. So we want to console.log this, and we're going to start with a string value, and we're going to say I am distance plus away, miles away from, and we need to add the city. Okay, so it prints I am 3,000 miles away from New York, but without spaces. So if we learned from last time, we want to include a space before distance. We already have a space here, but we need a space in front of the city name now. So what this essentially means is I am, string value I am with a space, plus the distance, plus space, miles away from space, plus the city. And it produces I am 3,000 miles away from New York. So this is called string concatenation. And this is a really useful way to include variables in a console statement with additional string values if you want to combine them all together. But in my opinion, there's actually a cleaner way of doing this, and that is called using a template literal, which are the backticks that I mentioned in the last video that I said were a little bit more complicated. So what we want to do for this template literal is we want to write a console.log statement and write the backticks. Don't forget our semicolon. But the difference between the template literal and the string concatenation is that it is one string you're only using for the template literal. You're combining everything into one. So we're going to start off with I am, but we're not doing a plus here. We write a $sign with the squiggly braces. And we're going to write our variable name in here, 3,000 miles away miles away from, and then we're going to write our other variable in here, city. So I am distance miles away from city. I am 3,000 miles away. I'll show you just the one here. I am 3,000 miles away from New York. So this is a lot cleaner, and you don't have to worry about adding this space and forgetting the space and everything. This is a lot cleaner way to write the output. But there is actually one other way to do this, and that is instead of writing everything in the console.log statement, we can just make it a variable. So let's say let sentence equal I am plus distance, I am plus distance plus miles away from, and then we can write a console statement and write the variable itself in here. So what we're going to do is, let's comment this out. And it will still return I am 3,000 miles away from New York. So as you can notice, this is the exact same thing as this, but it's a lot cleaner because now you are just writing the variable name in the console.log statement. So those are the three different ways to print variables if you want to combine them all together in JavaScript. So the last thing I want to talk about today is how are we going to determine different types of variables. So there are many different types of variables in JavaScript. We've got the string value that we know. We've got the number value, which is the same as an integer value. We've got Boolean. We've got object. We've got undefined. We've got null, but it has a little bit of a trick to it. And we have big num. So let's start off with string. So we've talked a lot about strings. So we're going to write the variable let city equal New York. And we're going to console.log this. So our goal with this is not to output New York this time. We want to output what the value of New York is, what the type of variable is. So it's a string variable, a string value. So what we're going to do is we're going to write type of city. So this is essentially saying, let me print the type of variable that city is, type of value city is. So it'll output string because it is a string value. So now let's do the same thing for number. So let's say let age equal 30. And we're going to console.log type of age. So this should output number. But we don't have to use whole numbers like this. We could also say let decimal equal, let's say, 10.45. We're going to console.log that, and we're going to say type of decimal, and that is going to output number as well. So decimals are appropriate to use as well. So now let's try Boolean. So Boolean values are true or false values. So if something is true or something is false, it is represented by a Boolean value. So let's say let is programmer equals true. This is true because all of us are learning programming right now. So we're going to go type of is programmer. So this will return Boolean, as you can see here, because it equals true. But if we write equals false, it'll still return Boolean, because any value that is represented by true or false within here is a Boolean value. So now let's do object. So an object is a collection of related data or functions stored as key value pairs. So let me show you how they're represented. So let's say let person equals, let's say the name is Bob and Bob's age is 27. So what we are going to do is we're going to print the type of person. And as you can see, it returns object because this is a collection of data, and this is how the collection of data is represented. So we can also determine if something is undefined. So as we showed in the last video, if we do not assign a value to x, it will return undefined. Oops. It will return undefined. So, but if we were to assign a value to x here below, it would be represented as a number, which is expected. So now we're going to talk about null values, and there's something very interesting about null values. You would probably expect that it would return the value null. But let's say we're going to assign a variable called empty value. And we're going to console.log this, and we're going to do type of empty value. So let's run that. But it returns object. So null values are essentially values with no value at all. And the reason it returns object is because this is a historical bug that has actually never been fixed. So that is it's a big bug that has never been discovered. So I think that's pretty cool that there's a little issue in the JavaScript with that. So I thought that was cool to bring up. In addition to this, the last thing that we can talk about here is big num. So big num are numbers that are very large, big integer numbers. So it's actually big int, but I was going to say let big num equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, n, and console.log type of big num, and that'll return big int. Now, big num was my declaration. So big int are big numbers, big integer values. So that is it for the different types of variable declarations we can have in JavaScript. So today we discussed 3 different things. We discussed naming variables, printing variables, and the different data type variables. So I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be continuously talking about JavaScript and increasing the difficulty with each video. So please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and see you next time. Thank you.